All right, guys. So it's 1:05 right now. I figure we'll start the meeting right now. For everybody, the agenda is currently in the chat. If it's not, please let me know. I'll put it in again. But so essentially, I just kind of wanted to give a quick update on what's going on with the HABs testing and monitoring in the Stockton area. First, I'll talk about what's going on with Restore the Delta, and then I'll also go into what's going on with the University of North Carolina, and I'll something just came up, but I'll update everyone to make sure that that gets fully explained. But essentially, this was the first month that we at Restore the Delta have been testing and monitoring in the Delta. We started at the very first of the month, which was I think May 2nd, which was a Monday. And every week we've gone out to 7 different locations, ranging from Morelli Point to the waterfront to the Buckley Cove, Windmill Cove, and also Smith Canal right at the end of American Legion Park. And up until this point, we've collected data that we can't really share just yet because it's not on our website yet. But in a few weeks, we'll have our website up, and then soon everything will be available there. But we've also been sharing our data with Karen, as you see her in the chat or in the room. I've been sharing my sheets with her too, and they've been putting it onto their map as well. And so far, up until this past week, it hasn't really been that hot, or even they haven't seen any blooms until this past week. And so that, I mean, that's definitely an improvement from last year, but we want to make sure that we're keeping ahead of the blooms as they show up. And that's the reason why on Wednesday of last week, when we were testing at Smith Canal at the end of American Legion Park, we saw our first bloom. And if I can share my screen, I am going to show some pictures from the park that day, which I just kind of want to explain and show you guys what it looks like when we're talking about these blooms. Okay, there we go. And my question is, can you see both pictures or just one? Not, oh, just one. Okay.
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Well, I'll go from this one first, and then I'll just go to the next one. But as you can see, there's this like really electric green kind of coloring. Like obviously the Delta's got its own green here, but there's a little bit of a lighter green in this area right here. And in the next picture, I'll show it more in the sunlight. But essentially it was like from 10 to 15 feet out from the shore. And this was where we took this picture. There was someone who'd set up a picnic blanket right behind us, and they were sitting there and someone was fishing. Thankfully found out they were throwing their fish back, so they weren't eating it. But I mean, this is a public area. This is a park where people end up like staying for during the summer. And so having people this close by to it and then using it for fishing is kind of concerning, especially because they're asking us what we were testing for and why this was such a concerning aspect. And obviously they hadn't learned about HABs yet, so we kind of give them like the quick information about why it's bad, what issues it can cause in pets and humans, and such and forth. But essentially, yeah, this was all along the shoreline, all the way up from here. We took a weird picture, but it kind of goes along the entire way up. And can you see my mouse too? Okay, that's good. And let's see if I can find the other share. This one. Okay, and can you see this one? Okay, so this one's more in the sunlight and shows a little bit more of the shore. And I know that this looks like there isn't a bloom here, but from when we were there was a bloom all the way up until this point, and it was along the entire shore, just kind of showing it more. So obviously when we first saw this, it was definitely surreal, because I hadn't seen it at all before this, and it was the first time I've experienced it. I remember the 2 interns with me, we were walking up and I was like, there's probably not a bloom there. We'll just keep on going. And then as soon as I saw the bloom, I made everybody turn around and grab some masks, which I think is why it caused a scene for the people setting up on the picnic blanket. But yeah, that's dealing with that. Obviously you want to take the most precautions, and we took the most precautions as soon as we started seeing blooms. And seeing that we've seen our first one, I'm curious to see what it'll be, because I'll actually be here tomorrow morning. So we'll see if it's still there. Obviously, the temperatures have been a little bit lower since last week because it was about 100. The day was 100, but the temperature was 90 on that day. So we'll see. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's not there, but we'll see tomorrow. And essentially, that's the only thing I can really report from the blooms that we've seen, because that's the only one we have seen. But aside from that, everything else was kind of lower numbers, things you kind of expect for an area that does get infested by HABs every year. But aside from that, that's the only thing I can really report this month. I'm assuming with June next month, it's going to be a little bit hotter, and obviously there'll probably be more blooms, but that's about it for now. But I see Scott has a question.
Yeah, this is all brand new to me, and so I think it's probably new to most of us. And I'm not, if I'm going a little bit too detailed with the questions, certainly, just tell me to back off. But when you talked about the weather, like 100 degrees, 90 degrees, algal bloom, now we've kind of hit a little bit of a cool off period. Does the cool off period kill the blooms? Do they just get kind of like pushed off somewhere else with weather? Or I mean, do we know what happens to them, I guess, when the weather turns?
Well, I want to say when the weather turns, it's because up until this point, we've had hot days, and obviously the heat is a driving factor of blooms. And I don't know about the dissipating part of it. I hate to lean on you, Karen, but do you know what happens if does it just disappear, or does it stay there?
Yeah, good questions. So it depends. Sorry, an inconvenient answer. So it's really about the water temperature a lot of times, and it's also about the wind patterns. So if we're really concerned about toxins, even if we see it cool down and the algae is actually dying off, with the cyanobacteria is dying off, we'll see still an increase in toxins as they're dying off and releasing those toxins. So that can happen. But oftentimes, because water takes longer, obviously, to cool down than the air temperature does, it'll continue to persist unless we have a prolonged period of cooling. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then, were there any other questions?
Yeah. Spencer, so you tested Buckley Cove, and you tested, where was the first place you said you were?
So I can go through the sites. On Mondays, we go from the Stockton waterfront, so like right on that catwalk right near Weber Point. We start there. We also test at the Morelli boat launch right under the freeway over there.
Right.
And then Mormon Slough pretty close by as well.
So Mormon Slough is not as bad as Legion Park?
Not right now, at least. But I'm still expecting that to be a bad spot for blooms at some point.
It's kind of a dead end spot too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, one other question. So now, Karen, are you do you work with the Florida HABs at all? I don't remember what your focus is.
Yeah, so I'm over here in the California Water Boards. I'm at Central Valley Water Boards.
So, what, and not right now, but would it, I think you need more data, but would it be appropriate for us as the AB 617 group to approach, or maybe even RTD, I don't know, to approach the city? Ought there to be signage at these sites for potential, this is what we're looking at?
So that's a great question. We, as the water boards, are not, we don't have the mandate to require people to post signage, but we have many times strongly suggested that the city post signage. They have not been willing to in the past. I think Restore the Delta, and you should talk about this, Spencer, but I think they have successfully gotten some signage in the past, is my understanding. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I don't know personally. I know that in the sites that we do go to, Buckley Cove being one of them, they have a sign for warnings, and I'm pretty sure the Morelli boat launch as well had a sign for a warning at one point.
Yeah, but I think so. It's kind of up to the landowner to post it or not. And so if you can get we've had some private docs and such that have posted in that area. But yeah, if the city gets more pressure, perhaps
Maybe
they
we'll
will
actually
agree
start.
to do that. Yeah.
And I guess that's the whole point of us testing it in the first place, just so that there's a little bit more pressure on making sure there's a warning out there, and that people who aren't asking us when we're taking the test why this thing is electric green in the first place. But if that's it for questions, I think I'll move on to an update from UNC, because recently I just got an email as of this morning, because this week we were actually going to be meeting with some of the folks from UNC, Haley, and I invited her to this meeting, but she informed me this morning that she and her house got COVID-19. So they cannot make the trip out this week, which means we won't be meeting with them this week. And if she's resting, I didn't blame her for not showing up to the meeting today. So I know that they are still planning on coming in at some point at the end of June, and that's as much as I got from it. But I know that I think Scott, last meeting you asked if I could invite her so that we could ask more of the air monitor related questions, and I'm sorry I don't have answers for those just yet. But I know that they've got pretty much everything set up. We're going to be meeting with Haley and one of her, I believe it interns as well from at least from the NorCal area. And we're going to be situating like our use of our own freezer and fridge for things they need to store as well. So it's a short update, and I know I put it for like 10 minutes, but if there's any questions about that, I could maybe make an answer for. But aside from that, that's the update.
And I think last meeting, Spencer, we had heard that there were some hiccups just generally with the project, but it sounds like kind of what's going on right now is, those have been smoothed out, and the UNC research team does intend to come out and do sampling like during the summer months.
Yeah, that I forgot. You're right. During the contract dispute got what do you call it, resolved. So that's been good now, and I think it's because, long story short, some leadership changed at UNC and some things ended up being written under the wrong name or something like that. So at least it's good now. So and it's funny, I don't have much else to update on. Obviously we went over seeing what we've seen, not too much until this past week. Tomorrow I'll obviously have more information on if the bloom is still there. And if you're looking for more regular updates, I know that the Restore the Delta Twitter also uploaded the photo that we took on Wednesday last week. So if you're trying to find updates from us through there, we'll often periodically put updates on what we're seeing in HABs. And I'm likely, if we see pictures, you'll see it on our Twitter for sure. So if you're interested, it's on there.
I'll also say that we have a lot of folks from various agencies reporting to our statewide web map with visual monitoring. And so I update our map regularly whenever we get those. So that's another good place to look.
And that map is also in the agenda. If you're interested, it's the State Water Board's HAB incident map. But Margo, you had a question?
Well, now I have two. So Karen, and I was looking at the map, what does the map reflect? It just looks like waterways, or is it the testing sites? What is it telling me?
Yeah, so these are based on our trigger levels, which are based on various cyanotoxin levels. And so if you look at the map, there's different colors on it for different kind of bubbles. There's kind of the caution, and the caution thing or the caution trigger level can be triggered by cyanotoxin testing or just by a visual monitoring. So if, for example, Spencer were to show pictures like that, then we would put that caution there. And then the trigger levels beyond that, which is the warning and the danger, are only triggered by the cyanotoxin testing itself if it's over a certain threshold. And those can all be found online. If you're interested, I can send you an email with links to read more about it.
Okay, thank you. And because it's an interactive map, I didn't realize that first when I was looking at it. So
okay, yeah. It has, you can click on the dot and it'll tell you some more information.
Yeah. So one more question. So Spencer, We have a lot of people in our area that live right along the waterways, including me. So so tell me again, what is the effect on the air when you have an algal bloom like this? And what's the distance? What happens there?
So the air side of harmful algal blooms is still being researched. And I think that's kind of tying into what the UNC program is trying to look into with their filters and seeing how far. As far as how far the toxins can spread, I've heard 7 miles. I haven't seen the source myself, but everybody I've talked to about it has says it can go up to 7 miles distance. And obviously the effects it has in water or ingesting and getting onto your skin can range from liver issues to things like that. So my hypothesis is that it's going to be similar. If it gets into your airways and gets into you ingest it that way, maybe it still affects your liver. Maybe it's on a lesser degree because it is airborne, but that's what that UNC research is going to hopefully provide. And Karen, did you want to add on to that?
And Stephanie, did you want to add? I don't want to cut you. Okay. Yeah, I think from what I've read about it, I think the main answer is we just don't know. And though Stockton has really widespread blooms, some of the cyanotoxin levels are lower than some other places we see. And so that's a factor as well to think about. Yeah, I think we just really don't know at this moment.
Thank you.
And then Stephanie, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted, thanks for all those great questions. And I just wanted to see, I mean, if the group is interested, I did see a couple links to some interesting tools. And I wondered if anyone, either Karen or Spencer, I know I see one from Restore the Delta mapping out some of the locations for testing. And I know Margaret's already mentioned it, but the map also kind of the interactive features. I just wanted to invite anyone, if it's of interest to the group, to share screen and walk through those tools. That way folks know how to use them and kind of what they're showing.
Yeah, let me open up the map real quick from the water board site if you want to see if I have it open somewhere. I just need to see if it's here. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so I'm going to screen share that real quick. Okay, so obviously this is the incident report map on the water board. And let's see, I'm going to go down to the San Joaquin County real quick. Click on that so we only have those. Zoom in. Okay, that's not right. And so right now, at least, this area here is where I think where Restore the Delta is mostly reporting, which is right there, McLeod Lake. We've got Mormon Slough. We've also got the Morelli Park, as well as more of the Stockton Rod and Gun Club, Buckley Cove, and the Windmill Cove. So these are the 7 sites that we're testing at on Restore the Delta. And I'm looking for, I don't really know if we've got the map for Restore the Delta. If we do, I'll go and open that up real quick. But essentially these obviously are the yellow that she was talking about, where it's either caution or an algal mat alert. And the Smith Canal obviously has a darker orange because of the testing we did, and also there being the bloom present. So obviously I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, this, like you mentioned, this is a reporting tool. Different agencies will report to the water board. They'll input this onto their website, and then they'll add the current advisories based on locations. And obviously I kind of sped through it at the front, but you can sift by and then you can also look at specific locations on here. So if, for instance, you wanted to see the False River, it's going to be up here, and it'll leave it highlighted, versus Buckley Cove, which is another one of our sites. You'll see it here. And that's essentially kind of how you're running through the map here.
Yeah, and just a little bit more on that. The dots on this map start larger and they fade away as they're further away from when we reported it. We are currently transitioning to a new database. So right now we're just entering the trigger levels, how if it's yellow, orange, or green or red. So as you can see, the key down at the bottom does correspond to different trigger levels. But in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start entering as well the actual data. So what the cyanotoxin levels were, how we got that particular advisory and where it originated from. And there's also another side to this, which is an online portal that people can actually download data, look for trends themselves, that kind of stuff for each site. And that'll be coming online soon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you have anything else to add?
Oh, yeah. Feel free to ask questions if you have.
If there were any questions.
And also, after we look at that map that RTD has, Spencer, maybe I can also show the satellite tool.
Oh,
Be
yeah.
interesting to folks.
Definitely. From from SFEI or from?
Yeah, it's like a Water Boards SFEI partnership.
I gotcha. Okay.
I can pull it up.
Okay. And I'll quickly go over our map, which I'm hoping there's trends. We'll see. Are you seeing the map or are you still on the other page? Okay, good. So this is the map that's going to be on our homepage at some point in the next few weeks. And obviously it looks pretty similar, but it's more along the lines here. And you can click on each station and you can look at obviously the latest measurements, which are the things we input. We measure air quality index, air temperature, algae concentration based on a scalar model, electroconductivity, and other things like that, as well as the test result, which show shown in parts per billion. Now I'm hoping, yeah, there we go. So we do have trends. So this trend line is going to show what it looks like during the entire testing period. In this case, we started Monday, May 2nd, and it's showing all the way till the 23rd. And you can see that the temperature starts rising. The algae concentration has been nothing for McLeod Lake because we haven't seen it yet. Electroconductivity has kind of gone down, which is interesting. Humidity's gone down, salinity's gone down, sky conditions, which is also another scalar, which is just referring to like, is it cloudy or not cloudy, really? Test result has kind of done a loop up in there. And essentially, this tool will show you on any site what the bloom percentage was like, if it went up, if it went down. Like for instance, this will show a little bit like for the test result. Let's see, concentration went up. Let me see the test result real quick. The test result, even though it doesn't really show on the line, this is really low compared to this, because this one was one of our highest test results, period. And essentially, you'll be able to look at all of this data on our map once we have it up on our own website, and should be a helpful tool in seeing the locations nearby here, being able to see what's going on. And if there were any questions, if not, I'll pass it to Karen to see if she can share the satellite imagery.
Let me figure out how to do that.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, cool.
Can y'all see it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So this is a satellite tool. It takes satellite data from space and uses basically reflectance of various wavelengths to filter out what is within the wavelengths of cyanobacteria and particularly the pigments that they create. So it has the scale that's cyanobacteria abundance, and black means that there isn't any detected, and darker red means that there's a lot. Because it's satellite imagery, it can only reach some of the really largest water bodies in California. So I've zoomed into kind of the Delta area here, and you can see, Stockton isn't really well covered, but some of the other Delta areas are better covered. So you can see that, there's more of a bloom here than, for example, in Suisun Bay. So this is really useful. It's not perfect. There are issues, for example, with cloud cover. Obviously, you can't get an image. or at various elevations. But the delta is an area that it seems to mostly be working in. So if you actually click on one area, you can view the satellite data. Some things to look for, you can see these graphs, you can go back in time. So I could highlight a certain range of time and it would show me these graphs for that time. So you can walk backwards, which is nice. It's based on a 30-day interval, so an average, because from day to day, you might have cloud cover, you might have various things that affect that interval cyano-reflectance. So you can change the interval, but the standard is 30. Some things to look for is this pixel count. If there are few pixels that it's based off of, it's not as reliable. This is kind of our 18 pixels. It's a threshold that we decided was worth listening to. But the more, the better. So in this case, there's a lot of pixels here. And so I would trust this data more. And then you can also see, here's again, the cyano index, the CI as they call it. And you can see the mean and the 90th percentile and kind of interpret that data based on that. And then you can also, if CDEN, if you guys know, that's the California Data Exchange Network, and it has a lot of water quality data in it. And if this area has data inputted from CDEN, then you can also compare it with graphs based on this lookup table. I personally have not had great success with this part of the tool, but in some areas it's better than others. Yeah, and then you can also look at historic data tables. So I think that's a pretty useful tool. Anyway, any questions on that?
I guess I had one for, is there a reason Stockton isn't really covered on that map, or is?
I think, so the places that aren't covered on it are just based on the area within the width of the water body. So it just, the water bodies aren't big enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if there weren't any other questions, that's pretty much all we had on the agenda. And if that's good with everyone, I wonder, are we good to adjourn? Okay. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you taking some time out of your Tuesday after a Memorial Day weekend, and we'll try to get another meeting set up for the end of June some point on a Tuesday, because those are the days I'm not testing. So looking forward to that. And well, I'm going to say hopefully we don't see any blooms, but the scientist in me wants to see them. So hope you guys have a good rest of your months.
Thanks all for joining, and big thanks to Spencer and Karen for sharing all those updates.
And thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing.
See you next time.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Armando.